Are you stressing or worrying or maybe even obsessing about debt? It doesn't have to be that way. I want to help you shift that right now so that you can actually take productive action with your money and with your business. My name is Christine McAllister, and I am the Huffington Post featured founder of Life with Passion. I help high-achieving women to quit their jobs and replace their incomes by starting and running businesses that they love. And I'm so glad that you've joined me for this discussion on debt, because this is something that is so charged for so many of us. And in fact, there's something really unique about, I think, a lot of the times the way that women view debt. And I think it's something that can really keep us stuck. And actually, I was coaching some of my private clients on this last week, and they came back to me and said, Christine, you have got to share this with the wider community. Like, this was such a powerful take on debt. And so that is what I'm doing with you right now. I wanted to share this with all of you because I heard it was something that was really, really helpful to my clients. So here's the thing. Debt is supercharged with emotion for a lot of women. A lot of us use it as a reason, whether or not we're even conscious that we're doing it, we use it as a reason to beat ourselves up and to put pressure on ourselves to work harder, right? And by the way, if you're watching this live or on the replay, I'd love for you to say hello. I'd love for you to share your ahas, and I'd love for you to share your insights, or if you kind of can connect to something that I'm sharing. So a lot of times what happens when we have debt is that we assign a lot of meaning to it. Like, we really personalize it. Like, if I have debt, it means I'm a bad person. If I have debt, it means I'm irresponsible. If I have debt, it means pressure. It means stress. It means I need to keep worrying about it until something changes. But what it actually does when we put ourselves in that state of worrying and obsessing and stressing about debt is it perpetuates us being in debt, right? It not only takes our brains to a place where it's really hard for us to think creatively, it's hard for us to stay motivated. It actually shuts down a lot of the creative pathways in our brain when we're beating ourselves up like that. But it also puts us in this constant state of pressure where money, everything about money becomes supercharged and super just like clenched and tight and stressful because we have this feeling. Hey, Jamie. Hi, Angie. I'm glad to see you here. So we assign all this meaning to it, right? We're like, if I have debt, I'm bad. If I have debt, I'm, irresponsible. If I have debt, I'm this, rather than going, it's just a thing. Like, it's a thing outside of me. It's not connected to my self-worth. What I'm saying is that so often we connect our debt to our debt to our self-worth. And that is just not, it's not helpful. Can you see that? Like, because we know in theory that we have inherent worth as human beings. Inherent worth as human beings. But if you're feeling really charged around debt, then the first thing that I recommend that you do, both speaking from experience and working with a lot of clients around money mindset, is to remove that charge, to like diffuse the charge that you have around debt. Okay? What do I mean by that? If you're feeling stressed, if you're obsessing, if you're worrying about money, it makes it hard to deal with it in a positive way, right? Because everything around it is negative. Everything around it is negative. So how do I recommend that you remove the charge around debt? Hey, Mallory. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Number one, I want you to reframe it. I want you to start saying something like this. Wow, I am really grateful that I've had the opportunity to have this money accessible to me when I have needed it for the things that I have wanted to use it for, to build my business, to invest in myself, to invest in my business, to pay my bills. What we perceive, coming at us and the meaning we make out of things. This is something you hear me talk about a lot, like how human beings thrive on meaning. What we perceive is such a small percentage of what's actually coming at us into our reality at any given moment. So if every time we see something that relates to money or debt, we assign something negative to it, our brain goes, oh, that's the story we're telling. That's the story we're creating. So we're going to keep looking for things to reinforce that story. The good news is that you can choose to tell and reinforce another story. And that is what I recommend that you do around debt. So, wow. You could say something like this. Wow, I am so grateful that I've had this money accessible to me when I needed it to start my business, to pay my bills. It's really true that back in the day, in maybe my grandparents' generation, my great-grandparents' generation, my parents' generation, they might have had to pick up and move across the country, or maybe even to a different country, or walk into a bank and sign their life away and take out huge loans and huge risk in order to start a business. But that's not the case for me today. In fact, there has never been a lower barrier to entry for starting a business. And there has never been less expensive to start my own dream business. And I am really grateful for that. I am really grateful that I've had the opportunity to invest in the things that are important to me. Does that make sense? Start telling yourself that story. So I know that in my case, my great-grandfather, we recently just found a picture of this on ancestry.com. My great-grandfather moved his entire family, first to California and then to Texas, in search of the entrepreneurial dream. And covered wagon, babies being born, traveling with small kids, defending themselves with shotguns. And that was their life, rough and tumble in search of this better life for themselves, and I am, of course, a product of that entrepreneurial spirit, but I don't have to risk my actual life, even though sometimes spending money might trigger that same flight or fight response within us. I don't have to risk my actual life in a covered wagon in order to start and grow my own dream business. I have access to, and I have had access to money and ways to invest in myself from the comfort of my own home. And I'm really grateful for that, right? I had access to money to get my education, and I'm really, before I was making a living, and I'm really grateful for that, And I used to really, really stress about it. It used to keep me up at night. But the truth is that wasn't doing anyone any good. I think I had this story that if I wasn't stressing about it, then I wouldn't work hard. But that just wasn't true. I love my work. I love working. I have a strong work ethic. It's not tied to being in debt or not being in debt. Whether I've been in debt or not in debt, I've always had that same drive and that same work ethic. So it's learning to trust myself that was also a false story. And let's start telling a better one. Shift your thinking around the debt and reframe it so that you can think with a better brain. You can think with a better brain. I'm so grateful I've had this available to me. I know a ton of people still today in different industries have to take out huge loans. Maybe if you're starting a franchise or you have to rent a retail space or whatever, you really have to put a lot on the line in terms of finances in order to start a business. And when I'm starting a business online from home, my investment is comparably really, really small, and I can trust myself and show up for the things that I feel I need to start my business because I want to start a business. I'm growing a business in a way that feels good for me and takes care of me and my family and what I want from my life, right? So also, another thing that you can tell yourself, when I look at the potential upside of my income, compared to what I'm spending, what I'm investing to start my business, or what I have invested. You know, it really seems like that was a pretty small investment to make for the potential upside, right? Entrepreneurs take calculated risks. We are not reckless. We take calculated risks in order for great potential reward, right? So when I have invested in myself in group coaching programs and one-on-one coaching programs, it has always been to make a return. And I have always made a return several times over on those investments, because I know that I hire someone I believe I can learn from, to learn specific things from them. I go and apply, and I trust myself, right? I know that with that accountability, I'm going to show up 100%. And that's what I see a lot of times for my clients too. So it's like, which story are you going to tell? Are you going to tell the story of this is bad? Are you going to tell yourself you're wrong for doing the things that you've already done? Because guess what? That doesn't help anyone, right? Or are you going to tell yourself you're wrong for doing something that you really want to do, which also doesn't help anyone and really messes with your intuition? You got your intuition over here saying, this is what's best for us. This is my instinct. And over here going, no, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad. How are you supposed to sort out what you actually want and feel clear about that and move through it if you're fighting guilt and shame? Because those are two very powerful negative emotions. And a lot of times those are the things that we connect to debt. Can I get an amen? So I'm creating this business with a small investment for unlimited potential upside of profit in my business as I grow my business. I am not investing in something that has a fixed return or a fixed income. I am investing in myself. And one of my clients recently shared in Life with Passion Society that experts say that every dollar you invest in personal development comes back to you with a seven times over. Every $1 you spend, you get $7 back in return when you invest in yourself and in self-development and personal development. So I'm investing in a really smart way in my business and in myself. I'm creating a business with no income ceiling, and that feels really good. So when we start to think like this, when we start to tell ourselves that story, just take a deep breath and feel how good that feels, right? Because when I trust that I'm taking steps to improve myself and my business and my situation on the path of my big dreams every day, instead of focusing on the story I'm telling myself of what I did wrong, when I tell myself I'm on the right track, I've taken a lot of steps. I'm getting chills just saying these words. They're so powerful. I've already taken a lot of steps. I'm showing up today. I'm on the right track. I've gotten visible. I'm making offers. I'm learning how to sell. I am learning about my message. I'm learning about my niche. I've done so much more than what most people do, which is just sit around and talk about how they hate their job and like, oh, it must be nice to start your own business. Oh, that must be nice for you. Well, guess what? It is nice for me because I took the hard steps to get there, right? Because I'm doing this mindset work, right? This is a side note, but like, it's so important to do this mindset work around money mindset and also around like owning your choices. This is what it comes down to. Mallory says, love that perspective and preach it. Hello, preach it, thank you. I'm so glad you're enjoying this. I'd love to hear what you all think of this. And like, if you have questions about this, like it gets me so fired up because I know that a lot of us hear things like, well, I'd love to run my own business, right? Or maybe, I know that when I was still in my 9-to-5, I definitely sat around and like said that, but didn't act because I was scared, right? For a lot of years, I didn't quit. Like I was building my business on the side, but I didn't quit because I was scared. And so I'd be like, well, it must be nice for you. You must have some secret that I don't have, right? Or you must have family money, or you must have, a rich spouse or parents or whatever. Like I made up all these stories. And guess what? Actually, the truth is those people were just more willing at the time to show up in the face of their fear, in the face of their doubt than I was. And now I'm willing to show up for that. I'm willing to show up for that. I'm willing to work through and have been willing to work through the guilt, the shame, the anxiety over money, over investing in myself, over having debt, over the uncertainty that comes along with being an entrepreneur, and move through it and not let that stop me and keep me stuck, right? Not let that keep me stuck. And so, yeah, it is nice. It is really nice, right? Like, and we can just laugh about this, not in a bragging way, but like, this isn't something that any of us have just created easily. Like, no matter what stage you are in your business, you haven't just fallen into it. Am I right? Can I get an amen? Right? So I think rather than like feeling guilty when people are like, it must be nice, it's more like, yeah, you have no idea. Like, I have worked for this. I have earned this. I have invested in myself so much. I have shown up for myself so much, and I am damn proud of that. I'm proud of that, right? And you're obviously not going to say this to them because you're a nice person, but like, you haven't done that work. Like, could anyone else start a business if they wanted to with the determination and the willingness to move through the fear and the overwhelm? Absolutely. Is it easy? No. But that's fine, because when it's your dream, it's exciting and it's worth it to you, and you know that you are becoming the best version of yourself as you grow your dream business, right? You're creating your dream self along with your dream business, because the best personal development that you can do is to start your own business, because you got to deal with your stuff when you are starting and growing a business, right? Brings it all out. Jamie says, so true. Reminds me of the little hen story. Angie says, I get the must be nice to have all the time, right? Oh my gosh. Yes, yes. And Mallory says, exactly. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad to know that we're not alone, right? And also, I think it's really important to know that we have the opportunity to frame this exactly how we want to, because again, we create meaning from our circumstances. So when it comes to debt, are you telling yourself, man, I've really learned some great lessons with what I've done with this money that are going to inform my future? Or are you telling yourself, I'm bad, I'm wrong, this is hopeless, this sucks, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, like, I don't see any way out of this, right? Because either way, your brain is going to listen to what you're saying and go, oh, okay, all right, I've got this. This is what we're perpetuating. My friend Dana Wilde talks about this part of our brains that we all have called the reticular activating system, which basically is looking for what to pay attention to. It's like, her example is like and I know this from my own life, like when you are trying to get pregnant, or, or are pregnant, or having a hard time with the fact that you're not pregnant or whatever, like suddenly all you see are pregnant people everywhere, right? Like, I didn't know there were so many babies all around me until I was pregnant and then lost Maeve. And then I was like, I'm never leaving my house again because there are babies everywhere. But I didn't know that before. So, I think the point is the reticular activating system, like, looks for what to pay attention to, because we have so much information coming at us all the time through our five senses that our brain has to filter it for us so that we don't just get completely overwhelmed. So it looks for what we say is important. So we set the priorities. So in a way, if you're feeling really, really bad about debt, you get to shift that right now, right? You get to own that, okay, this is the story that I've been telling, but I can tell myself a better story. And I can go back and listen to this and what Christine has been saying and talk about how to make the debt feel not so heavy tomorrow, right? It might have felt heavy yesterday. My brain might be saying, I felt heavy yesterday. We're supposed to make it feel heavy today, because we think 90% the same thoughts that we thought yesterday, unless we're consciously working to change them. And that's what this is about. That is what this is about. So I would love to hear your questions about your specific situation, about debt, about if you want my help with reframing something specific, some story that you have going on, some negative thought that you have going on, and you're like, this is just the truth. Like, there's no way. Like, I'd love to help you with that. So type it in below, whether you're watching this live or on the replay. Mallory said, I had someone get upset / a little irritated because I was out on my hammock while she was working and miserable. But she sees how happy I am now. Yeah, that's okay. That's so good, Mallory. Thank you for sharing that, because like what that brought up for her was irritation, jealousy on her part. And she tried to put that on you rather than being able to hold a mirror up to herself and go, why am I irritated? Right? Like, this is mine. Why am I irritated with Mallory? It's because I'm upset that I don't have what she has. And so people do this unconsciously. They wind up taking it out on you rather than owning that it's their responsibility, that they, choose the life that they want to create. And they can start their own business if they want to and are willing, right? Just like you did. Instead, it's easier, rather than facing that it's theirs, to go, oh, Mallory, you're out in your hammock, right? Because it's easier to tear someone down than it is to pull them up. I think about, if let's say you're standing up on this table, you're standing up on a table, right? And it's like the table is like freedom. It's like running your own company. And she's sitting down on the ground. And that ground represents, being stuck in a 9-to-5, that you're miserable. Well, it's easier for her to reach up and pull you off the table than it is for you to pull her up to your happier level. And so people do that, whether it's conscious or most of the time, I think it's unconscious, right? Like they're taking it out on you because they're unhappy and they're miserable. And I think a lot of times that can be real hurtful for entrepreneurs, real hurtful. I sound like I'm from Kentucky, right? I think it can be very hurtful because these are our friends. These are our family. Like, these are our friends. These are our family. We want them to love us. And we have this innate need as humans, and I think especially as relational women, to be liked. And so we're willing a lot of times to hide like our success, to hide our true happiness, because we don't want people to push us away or criticize us, because we want to be liked. We want to have our friends, and as we change, our relationships change often, and that can be hard. But I think the great thing for you is that you can say, nope, I'm reframing this. Like, the meaning I'm choosing to make out of this is that I am showing her what's possible. Because I know I did it and I know she can do it, right? And so I'm going to let that like roll right off of me, because that is not my responsibility to make her okay. My responsibility is to make myself okay, which I'm doing, and to show other people what's possible. Because if she came to me and said, Mallory, I want to do what you're doing, will you show me how? You'd say, heck yes, right? But that requires a vulnerability and admission and taking responsibility on her part. That's my little rant about that. Jamie says, I think for me it has to do with guilt from my side. How can I take the time to do this and really earn a great income? So I think those are two separate questions, right? Like guilt from your side, take the time to do this. Take the time. What are you taking the time away from? Because the word take makes me think that you're thinking that it's tied into guilt, like taking the time away and earn a great income. What are you taking the time away from? And why does that make you feel guilty? I think that's what I'd wonder there. Hi, Kaylin. Angie says, I had someone I know see me at the store say, it is so nice to see your business take off out of nowhere. Nowhere? I wish. Right. Oh my gosh. Yes, exactly. Like, I get that too. Angie, because I think like, for me, I've had a lot of like publicity wins recently, right? And so people are like, wow, she's scoring all this stuff. Like, it looks so easy for her. They don't know the hours I put in, like perfecting my pitch and doing the research and doing the hard work that most people won't do. And it's totally learnable, but it is work, and it happens to be really fun for me. So that's why I put my energy there. But like, it has been very gradual, right? I started Life with Passion in 2015. I was just talking with a client today about like, sort of the done is better than perfect thing, right? And Angie, I'd love for you to like share any insights or, thoughts that you have around this too, because I know you've been doing this for a while and you are super successful and your business is deservedly taking off because you have been working it, right? But I was talking about like, I just released this speech, which you can also see on this page just today, about that I gave over the weekend about Maeve and about this nonprofit that we support called Little Angel Gowns. I gave their keynote speech at their fundraising gala, and I was asked to give it last year too. And last year, I showed up and there was supposed to be a camcorder there, and there wasn't. And so I wound up, my mother-in-law who traveled up with me for it because my baby was 5 weeks old, and pushed Fee around in a stroller. Like, between pushing Fee with one hand, she recorded the speech that I gave in 2016 with the iPhone in the other, right? And it's like all grainy and the lighting's bad and the audio's bad. You can hear people coughing and like talking and clinking and everything, right? But I got it done and it got a really positive response. And so this weekend, I had a whole year to plan. I knew I was going to up my game this time. So this year, I hired my friend, who's an awesome videographer, to do a 2-camera professional shoot. We drove up early. We got a line into the AV sound thing, worked with the sound guy. I got a mic, right? Like a little Tony Robbins style mic. And we were ready with like the zoom lenses and the lighting and the exposure. And like I practiced on stage before so they could get my levels. And it was like a whole different deal because I had a vision of what it could be. And so if you watch last year's speech and this year's speech, the production quality has really jumped up. But I wouldn't have even known that's what I wanted or needed if I hadn't recorded one on my iPhone last year, right? So this one was a year in the making. So thank you, Angie. Angie says, I love that speech. Thank you so much. So there are so many examples, and I'd love for you all to share that stuff too. Like you could share the late nights. You could share the mindset work you've had to do. You could share the clarity you've gotten over time, what you thought you wanted to do, and then it became this, and like you tried this and it didn't work. And we've all had those things, right? And we all have, to tie this back into money and debt, we all have a relationship with money. And a lot of times we allow like the perception of being wrong or being bad at it to really keep us stuck. And you know what? We've got to be working on a positive relationship with money and dealing with debt, if we've got it, in a positive way in order to move ourselves and our business forward and stop keeping ourselves stuck, ladies. That is the truth. Angie says, imperfect action beats no action any day. Totally. Done is better than perfect, right? Done is better than perfect. And when you take that approach and stop procrastinating and stop expecting it to be perfect and just get stuff done, that's when you learn. That's when you get clarity. That's when you move forward. Every single time, not from sitting around and thinking about it. Jamie says, well, I think it has to do with working in a regular job. Yeah, so I think the question to ask, like from a logistical perspective, is, are there other people building their businesses on the side and replacing their incomes and quitting, right? And if the answer is yes, then I can do that too. Then I can do this in a really smart way. Then I can start slow and I can start without overwhelming myself and I can start really smart and strategic. Like I talk a lot about simple strategies and self-belief. I believe those two things are the key to a successful business. So I can start with those two things and then I can scale. Then I can scale as I grow. I can scale as I have the opportunity, right? And I don't have to always be super busy and overwhelmed because I'm going to be able to start delegating things at a certain point, which is going to free me up to do more of what I do best and like help me make more income, right? So I think that's the story to start telling yourself and like ask why is there the guilt? Like, do you feel like you don't deserve it? If other people have to work a regular job, then you shouldn't get to have more freedom, or guilt that you're taking time away from things. But then the other side of that is, well, who are you serving if you're not caring for yourself and like the person that you're made to be, right? You're actually not able to serve anyone well if you're not caring for yourself. So I think that that's a really important piece to look at as well. Mallory says, oh, I tried 3 different concepts in the past year, but after 2 not working or feeling right, I switched. And then within 2 months, I had clients coming in. You just need to find the right niche sometimes too. Totally. Oh my gosh. Totally. Yes, right. The right niche, I find, informs everything else, which is why I have Know Your Niche, right? Which is a $29 info product. I'll link it up here later if you want. You can take a look at it. But it's this really in-depth challenge that I created to help you nail your niche, because I believe of the 5 things that I talk about a lot to do to get your first or next client, I believe that knowing your niche is the number one most important thing, because if you don't know your niche, then you're not going to know the other 4 things that I talk about. Like, you're not going to feel confident in your business. You're not going to know your messaging. You're not going to know how to talk to your people. You're not going to know how to create the packages and pricing that they want. Like, it really does all start with your niche. And so that's why it's a really foundational piece. And that's why I have that at that info product at such a foundational price, so that it's really accessible for anyone, because I'm really passionate about making that available and increasing your confidence about it along the way. Yeah, I think the right niche is a combination of like people who are ready for your services and also people who you're excited to work with. Jamie says, the regular job brings in steady income, but I'm choosing to focus on going for this business full time instead of looking for another full-time job. Yeah, totally. And so I think like, some of that is the way that you think about a full-time job, right? Like, do I believe that a full-time job is truly what I'm called to do? And is it truly secure? Or is it actually true that it's kind of like working only for one client as opposed to spreading out my risk of where my steady income comes from among a lot of different clients, so that I don't get laid off, so that I don't have that risk, so that so I am creating my destiny instead of, if I feel called to being an entrepreneur, giving it away to someone else. And I think that that's a really important thing to notice. And all of this stuff, you guys, is not like any of it like meant to make you feel wrong or bad. It's just like, it's a perspective shift, right? It's a perspective shift to help you kind of think about things in a different way. Whether we're talking about debt, whether we're talking about guilt, whether we're talking about shame, whether we're talking about stress, like, how can we set ourselves up for success by learning to deal with these things and address them in a positive way? And the very first step is what you're talking about. Just being aware of how it makes you feel, so that then you can shift it. Angie says, I started while working a full-time job. You can do it, Jamie, and you deserve it. I love that. Yeah, Angie Wells, you started while working in a full-time job and you quit that job, girlfriend, and look at your business now. It happened overnight. What did she say? It's so nice to see your business taking off overnight. I love it so much, right? Entrepreneur, what is that? Entrepreneur problems, right? So awesome. What other comments do you all have? I've got an awesome coaching call that I'm getting ready to do with my beautiful group program that I'm running right now, Leave Your 9 to 5 Live. And so I will be hopping off here in a few minutes to get my voice a rest before I jump on with them. But I would love to answer, if you're watching live, any other questions, comments that you have right now around debt, around giving yourself permission, freedom. I'd love to hear your stories about this stuff. But I highly recommend that you really prioritize becoming aware of these thoughts. If you don't have what you want yet, your thinking is playing a role in it. The story you're telling yourself around whether it's possible, around whether you should, right? The shoulds can really, really keep us stuck, around whether it's okay to do this, like all of those types of things as they come up for you. I feel like that's a really like coachy thing to say, like, what's coming up for you? Whatever. Like, as you're thinking about them, as you're obsessing about them, noticing them is so powerful, because that gives you the ability. You're conscious now, right? Like, you're conscious, you're mindful, like everyone talks about. You're not just going around on autopilot going, must be nice for her, right? You're dealing with this stuff so that you can get a different result, so that you can get the result that you want. Yeah, Jamie says, I was laid off at the end of March, first tried to look for another position. Same time I had a couple of clients come, so I decided to go for my own practice full time. You're hearing my jitters. Totally, totally. And I think it's really great to notice and know that everybody has those. Everybody has those, because we are trained to be really good employees, especially if we have worked in jobs, for a while. If we've had careers, successful careers, like, we are trained to be really good employees. We are not trained to be entrepreneurs. 99.9% of us, right, are not trained to be entrepreneurs. And so we are instead fighting, like we're trying to apply the entrepreneur life using an employee mindset. So we've got this employee mindset that we got from school and we got from college and maybe grad school and like our jobs, of course, of like someone tells me what to do and then I do it and that's how I keep my job. And for most of us, like, unless, until you get laid off or have a major disruption, like it's hard to imagine that that's not a steady way to live. But when something like that happens, it's like, whoa, like, all right, I'm going to do something else, but then I still have the same mind patterns. I still have the same thought patterns. I still have the same neural pathways trying to tell me this is the way I should do it. And so until we learn something different, then it's like we're fighting a battle, right? So it sounds like you're becoming aware of that and you're going like, I want this over here, but I'm nervous about it. So like, that's where, becoming aware of it, being around other women who are on this journey and who are farther along than you and learning from them to think in a different way. That's where the power starts to happen, because then you do start to feel normal when you're around other women who are on this journey, as opposed to everybody else going to a 9-to-5 and you feeling like the weirdo who wants to run your own business, right? You start to feel normal when you're around other women, which is why I love Life with Passion Society so much, because that group is so supportive and everybody is on an entrepreneurial journey in there. So if you're not in there, get your buns in. And it also, I think, is really important to, a lot of times it can be really helpful to have somebody like take a personal look at what's going on for you and kind of hold your hand and kick your butt, right? So that you don't stay stuck, so that you say, this is my goal, and you have some help to get there. So a couple of thoughts there I think are really, really helpful. So yeah, Angie says, sometimes I'm still nervous about it. It takes time. Yes, that's so true, Angie. And I think the other thing to recognize is that, like, a lot of times our patterns, our thoughts are of like, however we've lived for a long time with those neural pathways, whether it's like debt is wrong and I'm wrong because of it, whether it's like there's never enough money or there's never enough time or like I'm not enough or any of those things, those can still get triggered for us at different places in our business. Like, you might do a round of dealing with it and clearing it when you first get started. And then when you get to a certain point of your business, you can be like, I thought I dealt with this. Like, where is this coming from, right? And it can come back for you when something happens or something you thought would happen doesn't happen or whatever. Those things can still come up. And I think it's important to know, although I was really annoyed when someone told me this, I'm sure that you all are much wiser than me and won't be annoyed and will be like, well, okay, of course, Christine, like, of course that's true. Like, I can't believe you were annoyed by this. But this is like, showed a little bit of my black and white thinking. Like, I just wanted to have my mindset fixed and be done with it and move on to the next thing. But that's not life, right? So, when I reach a new level of income in my business or a new number of clients for the first time or a new program or new level of visibility, a lot of times some of the old stuff that I have dealt with, my old story, resurfaces again. And so I think we do get quicker at recognizing it for what it is and clearing it, or at least like going, okay, I see what's going on and I'm not going to let it like send me into covers overhead, like total overwhelm this time. Like, I'm going to reach out for support. I'm going to recognize that maybe I'm having a minor freak out, and what do I need in this moment to feel like I am, coming from a powerful place again, rather than a reactive, fearful place. And so I think that is, that's a whole other discussion, but I think it's tied in with this one, because I totally agree with you, Angie. I mean, if anybody says like they're never nervous or whatever, then they're either really out of touch with their feelings or maybe they're a narcissist. It's usually people who are really, really in touch with what's going on for them. They might get really, really quick at shifting things, but they've got some kind of mindset practice in place that's constantly like keeping them strong and supported, and they're really aware of what could derail them, and make practice not allowing that, right? Practice safeguarding themselves, putting themselves in a bubble of peace, and reframing those thoughts as they come. Heather says, I do feel like a weirdo for being an entrepreneur. Yeah, I mean, in regular life, like I can remember when I was still in my 9 to 5, like there would be a couple times like I'd leave for doctor's appointments or like leave in the middle of the day and it wasn't lunchtime. And I'd be like, what are all these people doing out and about? Like, what do they do? I want to do what they do, right? Have you ever had that feeling when you're in your job and you're like, it's, 10 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon or whatever it is. And you're like, what do these people do? I want that. Like, I don't want to be sitting in my windowless office. I want to be free. And there are plenty of people who are, but like attracts like. So entrepreneurs tend to hang out with entrepreneurs, right? And so that's why it's so important to be involved in and be willing to make friends with people who have what you want and learn from them and hire them. Mallory says, I agree with Angie too. And Jamie says, deeply appreciate your thoughts, Christy and Angie. So I'm so glad. Thank you for showing up and asking the questions, Jamie. So Mallory gets it, right? Like being out in the middle of the day. So then the question becomes, well, how do I get that? Rather than like, again, going back to our earlier conversation, must be nice, right? It's like, well, how do I get that? Okay, what steps can I put in place if this is something I really want? It's kind of like, planning a vacation. How many people say, oh, I'd love to do that, go X, Y, Z one day? And then how many people go, this is what it's going to take. I'm going to book the ticket. I'm going to make the travel plans, right? So, you can look at business in the same way. Like, this is what it's going to take. This is what I think it's going to take for me. It doesn't make me right or wrong. It means I'm doing what's smart to set myself up for success, and I'm going to make it happen, right? Because I trust that this is part of my journey. I think that it's a little off topic here, but go with me. I think that one of the things that I've been learning, and this has a lot to do with a lot of the soul searching and questioning and things that I've done over the past 2.5 years since Maeve died, is that, I thought my life was going to look this certain way, right? And then it didn't, and it doesn't. And so much of that has been for the better, in a wonderful way. And of course, so much of it I would not have chosen. But I think that a lot of it has to do with, trusting that things are working out for us and then beginning to look for reasons why they are, right? And sometimes that can be hard when we're talking about stuff that we don't understand or never would have chosen. Believe me, I know that. I have been on that journey. But I also think there's real power in trusting that things are working out for me, that I'm here to learn some things, right? And I'm here on a particular journey, and everything is, Tony Robbins says, what if everything is happening for me instead of to me? Everything is happening for me instead of to me. And so if we begin to think like that, then we can see sort of how to start to look at some of these things in a positive way. Even things that were like, how could that ever have happened for me? Like, I'm not okay with that. What if it did? What if it did happen for you? What if there are things that you can learn out of it that you couldn't have learned any other way? And I think a lot of times, like the charge and whatnot around debt, what's the lesson in there for you, right? I'm not saying that you would wish to learn it that way, but what's the lesson in there for you? And it might totally not be related to money. It might be related to trust. It might be related to something that we don't even know right now. But just kind of being open to the learning and the process, and giving yourself permission around that, I think is like kind of the high level there that I want to leave you with. So I'd love to wrap this up by asking if there are any questions. I'll take a couple minutes to see if there are any questions before I go, because I wrap up for my group coaching call. I'm so excited to connect with those ladies. This has been an amazing conversation, and I thank you for joining me to talk about how to deal with debt in a positive way. I'd love to hear your biggest takeaways. I love that this conversation took so many twists and turns with mindset and giving ourselves permission to do what we want. This is a really, really powerful and important conversation, and I'm grateful that you've shared it with me. If this is something that you feel has been useful, if you feel like any of your friends could use this, I'd be super honored if you shared it or tag somebody who you think needs to hear this conversation, or maybe that you want to have the conversation with, and you're like, you got to hear this so that you know what I'm talking about, right? Because I really believe this is an important conversation, and that's one that I'd love to share with as many women as possible. So I'd be grateful if you shared it or tagged somebody, send them the link, whatever, so that we can keep talking about this, because I think the more women we can get freed up around this stuff, the more powerful, positive impact we can make in the world. And that's what Life with Passion is all about, right? To help as many women as possible go from surviving to thriving, because I believe that benefits your life. It benefits the lives of those you love. It benefits the lives of the people who are affected by the causes that are important to you, because the more money you make, the more you're able to give away, and money just magnifies what's already there. So if you're a generous person now, you're going to be a generous person with more, and you're also going to continue to bless the lives of those around you, because it's the kind of person that you are. And that's the kind of woman I work with and love to support. So I am really just happy that you're here. Happy you're here. I love this. Love this conversation. Heather says, I just started my confidence resume today. Yay, Heather, that's so exciting. I'm really excited to hear what comes out of that. Be sure to share on Life with Passion Society so we can all cheer you on and hear like what you uncover. Let's see. Mallory says, you're such an amazing mentor. Great talk. Mwah. Love you, Mallory. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining me. Brianne says, have you thought about podcasting? Yeah, I've been on a bunch of podcasts. It's close to 24 now. I've been a guest on. Podcasting of myself is like starting my own is something that has crossed my mind. It's not the right time for it right now. I'm working on finishing my book first and getting that released. But maybe in the future. I appreciate that thought. And it's great to hear from you. Heather says, thank you for all you do. Oh, thank you, Heather. Thanks for being a part of this. And thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. And Jamie says, joyful tears. The best kind of tears, right? Awesome. So, ladies, I'm going to go. And I wish you lots and lots of love. And I hope to see you soon